about the chosen one. The chosen one. Now, a lot of times when God chooses someone, he chooses someone who does not look the part, dress the part, or live the part. A lot of times God chooses someone based off their heart, not based off how they look. Sometimes and a lot of times God chooses someone that everyone's forgotten about, someone that's at the end of the line, someone uneducated, somebody that everybody else has looked over. Most of the time, that's who God chooses. Now, when man chooses someone, we choose someone that's maybe educated, look the part, dress the part, because we tend to choose people based off the outward appearance. But God chooses a person based off their heart, not based off how they look. Now, when you are the chosen one, a lot of times God, like I said, go to the end of the line and bring you forward and say, come here, I choose you. And you was the one at the end of the line that everybody else looked over. Now, let's talk about this for a minute. Let's look at some scripture. Now, when you look at David, David was chosen to be king of Israel. Now, when he sent Samuel to anoint David to be king, David was not living the part. David did not look the part. David was a young man tending the sheep in his father's field. He did not look like a king. He did not dress like a king. He wasn't educated. He was the least in his father's house. And when Samuel went to anoint David, Samuel had looked at all the brothers. And God still said, nope, not this one, not this one, and not this one. And finally, he asked David's father, do you have another son? And the father said, yeah, I have David, but he's out tending the sheep. Well, send for him and bring him here. When they sent for David, and David came, and then they looked up, and Samuel looked upon David. David was a little bitty man. Wasn't trained in battle, wasn't educated. He was just a young, plain young man. Matter of fact, a little pruny looking little man, but the Bible said he was a handsome man, but a small man. So out of all the brothers, God chose David, the least. See, God sometimes would take nothing and choose it. Someone that everybody has looked over in the church. Somebody that everybody looked over. No matter what era of life they're in. Everybody didn't look over them, but God still chose them. Now, we're going to look at Gideon also. You look in the Bible at Gideon. God chose Gideon to save Israel from Midian. He chose him to go save his people. Now, when God chose Gideon was a poor man. He was poor, and he was the least in his father's house also. So when the angel came to Gideon and told him that God had chose him, Gideon kind of had a little fruit feelings about it. He said, well, God, how can you use me? I'm poor. I'm the least in my father's house. But still, God chose him. Now, he was the least. He wasn't educated. He even said in Judges 6:15, he says, I'm poor and I'm uneducated. I'm the least in my father's house. Meaning he's poor. Meaning he was uneducated. He wasn't nobody trained great in battle. But still, God chose him. See, that's why a lot of times we don't need to be judging people, trying to put people down. We never know what God is doing in people. I've seen times in the church where you be in a church and God got someone, a pastor, look totally over what he have in his church and have speakers will come in from other churches to come in and speak. And he's overlooking the one in his own congregation that's blessed and work his blessing in order to grow his congregation. So it's not always we need to overlook someone that we think is small. But when you are the chosen one, and I'm saying all this basically to say this. If you are the chosen one, please don't be like Gideon. You know, we were Gideon telling God, but I'm poor. I'm the least in my father's house, but still God chose him. Because there's a lot of you right now watching this video, everybody's looked over you. Everybody has discounted you. Everybody said that you're nothing and you're not going to make it and just totally looked over you. And you know that God has placed something special inside of you. And God is calling you to come forth and do his will and do his work. But you thinking to yourself, I'm nobody. I'm uneducated. I ain't nobody important. God qualifies who he called. God qualifies who he called. A lot of times God don't call the qualified. You see a perfect example when he chose David and Gideon. He didn't call the qualified. He qualified who he called. So I don't know who I'm talking to. If you're at the end of the line and folks have forgotten about you and they looking over you, remember, if you know God is calling you, don't be afraid to go forth and do the work of the Lord and speak and open your mouth. If you only save 5 or 10 souls, that's 5 or 10 souls that's not going to hell. That's 5 or 10 souls that will be saved and be able to live and be saved. So one thing, I heard a lot of videos about the chosen one, but I just want to say this: God don't always choose qualified. He qualifies who he called. No matter how little you are, if you're the end of the line, God does not look at us the way man sees us. He looks at us. He looks at our heart. He want to know, is this going to be somebody faithful to me and faithful to my word? Is this somebody who's going to overlook me and forget about me? You know, he chooses people for his reasons and his reasons on. It ain't always about looks. But I'm bringing this to an end. I hope this blesses somebody. God bless you. God bless you. Have a beautiful evening and a wonderful day. God bless.